the fourth house, which is just before sunrise, we have settlement of dew. The dew falls before sunrise and after midnight, which is represented by the fourth house itself. And see how beautifully the fourth house also represents water. So this portion becomes watery. And when sunrise takes place in the first house, we have the sun, a fiery planet. It gives us the fiery element in the direction east and up till the direction south. After rising to the max in the south, we have sun in, now we have sun in fall. Eventually sun is now not heating up, it's going to set. So it is, and since it is also connected to the earthy sign, that directions or that division of element gives us the earthy element. And the last, when the sun sets in the seventh house, we get the airy element as the fourth division. Now, how this division of element from astrology can be used in Vastu for home, for office, for residence, let's understand this. So here, the color, I mean, there were no changes made to the Oval Office interiors once John F. Kennedy resumed the office after Dwight D. Eisenhower. I believe he resumed the office after this, and Dwight D. Eisenhower was using the same interior. So interiors were not changed. Then how come such a huge tragedy in life of John F. Kennedy? Is anybody aware? What was the color of the office actually? Okay, to surprisingly, I will show you that just before assassination of Frank Kennedy, Kennedy himself asked for renovation of the office, and the office colors were entirely changed to this. So basically, Vastu is an ancient, it's an ancient knowledge. It's an ancient knowledge based upon traditional Indian systems of architecture. Basically, everything is considered in this concept: the design, the layouts, how you arrange things, measurement of the things, colors of the things, even the preparation of the building, the structure of the building has to be talked about in detail. The spatial arrangement of everything in and around of the structure itself, and also of the objects within the structure, all the spatial geometry that we can talk about. Seems to be very direct in approach, seems to be more like we are simply talking about architecture. But no, the basis again of Vastu very much comes from astronomy and astrology itself. That is the beauty of this. Astronomy and astrology are the basic foundations. Many people do not understand this. People who do not study astrology and only study Vastu, they think that Vastu is a standalone subject. No. If you know astrology, you will know Vastu a lot better than others who only study Vastu. So somebody who has knowledge of astrology, he will understand Vastu even better. Please bear with my coughing because I was recently down with COVID. I'm still recovering. So many ancient Indian structures, talking about specifically South Indian temples, many forts for the kings were based upon, they were designed upon Vastu. Why they were designed? So that they can be aligned in harmony to the nature. Because now, down few centuries, we have electricity at our disposal. We can still get cold, we can create cold environment where it is supposed to be hot. Like the Middle East. The Middle East countries, I mean, with the air conditioning, they are able to sustain life there. A few decades earlier, it was not possible. In a similar way, what the ancients did was they studied the environment, and according to that environment, they understood that this direction in a particular way is harmonic to a certain kind of activity. Like as the direction, the people living in the northern hemisphere, they will always and always receive more sunlight on the southern side of their residence or their office because they are in the northern hemisphere. Welcome, Ankur. Welcome, Ankur, but you need to mute yourself. Okay. So people living in the northern hemisphere, for them, usually sun, whenever it transits from east to west, it has a little southern declination. And because of that, the southern side of any structure will always receive more heat, which creates a certain kind of activity which should be attached or done in the southern direction only. In a similar way, there are many other activities. There is the most important activities usually according to Vastu, which are to be considered in any house, is the most important thing that we do at our houses. We sleep for at least 8 to 10 hours in our house. We do not sleep in our office for such a long time. Even while working, we do not sit for such a long time in one chair. We move around in the office, which makes the bedroom of great importance. So bedroom becomes a very important part of Vastu. Another important part of Vastu becomes your nourishment. What you eat is what you think, and eventually how you behave. So kitchen and the direction of kitchen also becomes very, very relevant. So bedroom, kitchen. Now, since we are resting and we are eating, there is a third thing which is very important, is the disposal area, which comes to your toilets. So they become the third important part of this. So bedroom, kitchen, toilets, and then we also need to energize ourselves at our home. We don't energize ourselves at office because there are many people around us or there is a lot of workload. So what we do usually how do we energize? Either we pray, either we sit alone, we meditate, we contemplate. So that becomes a place of prayer. So the place of worship also becomes very important in a house. Then there are many other elements. How the stairs should be aligned, how the other rooms and activities shall be done in a house. Even there is a place to keep medicines to be more effective, according to Vastu Shastra. But there is extensive content you may find on YouTube regarding Vastu. But the trouble here is you do not find exclusive content. You will, if you want to know where shall be a worship house, it will be northeast. Where shall be your bedroom? It should be south. Where shall be kitchen? Southeast. And you will get these parameters very easily. But today's topic is more about what shall be the color of your flooring and ceilings. So in my experience of more than 2 decades, I have observed quite a lot of things. And in fact, you will not find much about color of floorings and ceilings being discussed in Vastu. There may be some content available, but not much is talked about and not much is researched upon. How shall be the ceilings? What shall be the color of ceilings? Because I have seen, regardless of how you are placing activities under one roof, either be it your workspace or be it your home space, if the color of the roof and if the color of the ceiling and color of the flooring is not correct or right, it can create trouble, and it will create a lot of trouble. So that is something today what I am trying to take up. And in relevance to that, we are also covering why the White House is the most effective official building in the entire world. Indeed, it is. It has been for more than a century now. The Oval Office, the White House, why it is so effective. So I will be discussing some principles and concepts, astronomical concept and astrological concept, in order to explain the concept of Vastu, why it is working in that way. So I believe I'll start now. I'll share my screen with you. Okay, for those who have just joined and I am new to them, let me give you a brief introduction of who I am. So I am your host, Gaurav Vadera from India, New Delhi. I have been a professional astrologer, a professional Vastu consultant, and a tarot reader for more than 25 years now. I have been a faculty member at one of the topmost astrological institutions, imparting my skills to hundreds of students there. In fact, I have trained numerous existing astrologers and tarot readers with my set of skills all across the globe. So here on the screen, I have mentioned a few of the courses which I conduct. These are certificate courses. The specialty of my teachings is that I conduct every course on one-to-one basis. I teach every student individually, understanding his level of learning process. And even since ancient times, astrology has been a hidden science, a secret science, because there is a lot of secrecy involved in it. So it has always been the best channel to learn. It has the best way and the best channel to learn has been from a teacher. It has always been taught under a tradition of a guru and a student, a teacher and a disciple. So that is the tradition which I follow with my students as well. There are many students, but I still teach them individually, because that way they never fail to understand the concept that I am trying to explain them. So that is the specialty here. So if anybody has any questions about my courses, they need the syllabus, you can connect with me on the telephone number mentioned here. You can WhatsApp me, you can call me, choose yourself. So now moving ahead to today's topic. So here I am presenting you a diagram of wavelengths. Don't be taken aback. It is nothing complicated. Here on the right hand side is your web gear: violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, and red. The spectrum which is easily visible to a human eye. Even this will narrate it even further. In order to understand the concept of Vastu, we need to understand how light and light waves work, how light waves affect us. The visible spectrum has infrared, which is not visible to eye. There is a visible spectrum, and below the visible spectrum we have infrared, and ahead of the visible spectrum we have ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet light has the frequency of ultraviolet light is higher, and the frequency of infrared light is lower, which makes infrared light better than ultraviolet. The key difference between infrared and ultraviolet radiation is that the wavelength of infrared radiation is longer than that of visible light, whereas wavelength of ultraviolet radiation is shorter. Therefore, ultraviolet waves are probably causing more harm than infrared waves. Ultraviolet photons have enough energy to damage or destroy DNA. Visible and infrared photons do not. When we absorb visible or infrared photons, the energy carried by photon goes into heating us up, but will not permanently damage our cells like ultraviolet photons can. In simple words, the morning sun, the rising sun, and the setting sun has more of infrared rays, which is always good. But the higher it goes, let's say around mid-noon, the sun is more direct on our head, and it is giving more ultraviolet light, in simple terms. And that is why we are not able to bear the harsh sunlight during high noon. And even these days, there are a lot of, multiple treatments coming up, the infrared light treatments and so on. There are many, many different kind of treatments coming from the infrared light. Now, medical science is kind of discovering the possibilities of healing abilities of the infrared. And to tell something, our ancient sages were very well aware of the benefic effects of infrared light when the sun is red in color. Just when it has risen above the horizon and is red in color, it gives you the best infrared light, which can energize or heal you. And even in Indian tradition, it is said that if you are suffering through jaundice, if a child is suffering through jaundice, you should always put him in the morning sunlight, because it gives energy to the body through infrared light. Even if the sun is not able to, you're not able to look at the sun directly, it really doesn't matter, but the sky will eventually, kind of reflect it down upon you, even if you are under the sky. Moving ahead. So we have understood the wavelength concept, how infrared differs ultraviolet light. Now let us understand a little bit of astronomy as to how we are receiving light on our planet when we are living in our own individual house, how we are receiving that light. So here is a sphere, celestial sphere, the infinite space in the sky with Earth. We have the north celestial pole and we have the south celestial pole. This is the celestial equator. And here we also know that the Earth is rotating in an anti-clockwise manner. Earth's rotation axis is anti-clockwise. And this is the path of the sun called the ecliptic. Now, the important part to understand is, if this is the perpendicular to the orbit, which is perpendicular to the ecliptic, then the difference or the inclination of the Earth in reference to ecliptic is 23.5 degrees, which is called the axial tilt or the obliquity of Earth. A little astronomy here, just a little dose of astronomy. So this is very evident that the Earth is a little bit tilted, 24 degree, 23.5 degree, it's tilted here. How this tilt is affecting us on an individual basis, let us understand that now. Now here is the Earth, I've made it a little larger. Let's say somewhere on the continent, there is a house as well. So again, okay, this is the north celestial pole, just in case, and this is the south celestial pole. So we have a little tilt of an axis. And here, let's say we have a house which is aligned to the cardinal directions. It is facing east. Exactly. So the north wall will face the north, the east wall will face the east. Rather than, being a little off the axis, the house is facing exactly the proper east. So basically houses, the border walls of the house are perpendicular to the cardinal directions. In that case, what happens is when sunrise takes place, observe this. When sunrise takes place, the northeastern part of the house will always receive sunlight first. The east and northeast, look at the image carefully again. Let's say this house is, Earth, this house is on a continent and Earth is rotating on its axis, and eventually sunrise is taking place. Now half of the Earth is dark and the half is the brighter half. And eventually, this image is showing the situation of a house during a dawn phase, during the early morning phase. So the house will receive light. The light will hit first. The first ray of light will hit the eastern and northeastern part of the house, which makes it very special. And we have already discussed that the early morning sun has more infrared waves, which are good. I'll show you this animation once again. See how the sunlight will strike the northeastern part of the house first. So this concept gives us the understanding that yes, something more energetic, something more prominent, and something more important is happening in the northeastern, eastern, and north part of any building, any structure. It becomes very important because it is receiving that positive energy in the very first place. There is a lot of positive energy in that direction. Now we have understood somewhat of astronomy. Now let's hop on to astrology to understand this concept even further. Now here is a square chart. Don't be afraid. We have, this is the first house. This is the first house in a square chart. Now I have mentioned the first, the 10th, the 7th, and the 4th. I have mentioned only 4 major houses. If you look carefully, I have written that the first house represents east, which is a fiery sign in itself. The 10th house represents south, which is having an earthy sign. The 7th house represents west, which has an airy sign. And the 4th house represents north, which has a watery sign. So these axes become very important. And even in Western astrology, even in tropical astrology, the 1-7, the ascendant, descendant, the MC, and the IC, they all are very important. And this concept in itself brings us how elements are affecting the directions. So starting with the 4th house, which is just before sunrise, we have settlement of dew. The dew falls before sunrise and after midnight, which is represented by the 4th house itself. And see how beautifully the 4th house also represents water. So this portion becomes watery. And when sunrise takes place in the first house, we have the sun, a fiery planet. It gives us the fiery element in the direction east and up till the direction south. After rising to the max in the south, we have sun in, now we have sun in fall. Eventually, sun is now not heating up, it's going to set. So it is, and since it is also connected to the earthy sign, that directions or that division of element gives us the earthy element. And the last, when the sun sets in the 7th house, we get the airy element as the 4th division. Now, how this division of element from astrology can be used in Vastu for home, for office, for residence, let's understand this. So here we have the north representing the watery element, the east and up till south representing the fiery element, and from south to west representing the airy element, and from west up till north again it represents airy elements. So these are the four major elements of Vastu which affect every direction. So now this square layout of the horoscope can also be taken as a reference table for any structure, either residence or office or for any other structure for any other purpose. But these are the basic elements which are fixed in nature and impact that, especially when we are talking in the when we are talking about the northern hemisphere. People living in northern hemisphere will always have sunlight in the south, rather than they will receive less sunlight in the northern part of their residence or building structure rather than south. South will always receive more sunlight. And you can see how south is given more of fiery and earthy element rather than the cooler ones. The cooler ones are air and water eventually. So for those who were not aware of these concepts of Vastu, see how beautifully astrology also hides a lot of concepts of Vastu. Now we'll straight away delve with understanding this concept of elemental division. We will straight away understand how the structure of White House is affected by these elements. What is good and what is bad. And then eventually we will conclude to the color of your floorings and ceilings. So this is just a rough structure of the White House. This is in the middle, we have the White House building, and outside we have, the gardens and everything. Here we also have a fountain, and at the top we also have a fountain. The beauty of this structure is that it is very well aligned to the cardinal directions. On the right we have the east, on the top we have the north, on the left we have the west, and at the bottom we have the south. But let me get you down to a proper map for this structure. So here is a map with the White House building in the middle, and this is the entire property here in the middle, as you can see. And I have divided it in the 16 directions, having north at the top, south at the bottom, east on the right, and west on the left. So this is just giving you a rough idea of how it is very well cardinally aligned. It is not on an angular way to any direction. It is not angular to east. It is not angular to north. The walls are very well perpendicularly aligned to the cardinal direction. This is in itself is one of the best things that you will find with any living space or working space. And beautifully, although you can yourself go to Google Maps and check it out, that in the northeast direction of this entire structure of their building, they have what we call as Treasury Department. Now, although it is again advisable to have financial matters in the directions from north to northeast, and since they already have a Treasury Department, not just one, there are two building structures outside of their structure which belong to Treasury Department. It's a very positive indication. It's a very positive sign. And even in the north, if you look, okay, let me zoom it up for you. Okay, this is the White House structural building now. And you can see at the top around the northern line, we have a fountain. And when I just mentioned the division of elements in directions, the north had the element of water. And having the element of water in the north in itself is a very good thing here, which is kind of, supportive for this structure. Okay, let's move ahead. It says the overall height of the White House to the top of the roof is 70 feet on south. Now we know that south is at the bottom of this structure. and 60 feet 4 inches on the north, which means the northern part of this structure is lower than the southern part of this building structure. And what I just mentioned previously, I also mentioned this previously, that the inclination of the earth, the axial tilt of the earth, makes you receive the beneficial sunlight, the dawn light, on the northern and northeastern part of a structure primarily. If your structure is higher in the east and north, it will obstruct that positive energy. The best part of this building structure is that it is lower in the northern part. Although I have calculated the exact position of the entrance for White House, which is the fourth Pardha, which gives Samriddhi, which means prosperity and influence. There is a lot of importance given to main entrance door as well of the structure. It kind of decides what kind of an impact that initial structure will give. Let me show you with one more diagram that how this northern the height of the structure, which is more in south and less in north, is impacting this structure. So let's say here is again a structure which is higher towards the eastern direction. Then what will happen during the sunrise time is, look carefully, the sunlight will hit the higher structure, but the light will get obstructed to the structure which is lower. But what is happening with the White House? White House is already opposite to this. It is having less height in the northern direction and eastern direction rather than the southern one. So south is more higher than the northern side. So what happens is, when the northern side is down, the entire structure is receiving the early morning sunlight. So which this in itself, the main entrance and the inclination of the structure of the building in the north, and having all the other attributes of having water in the north and being aligned to the cardinal direction in itself, gives a lot of positivity to this special building we are talking about. Now we'll straight away delve into the detail of the Oval House, which is actually the office of the president. So coming down to the Oval House, which is somewhere in the southwest direction of the building itself. So this is the Oval House from the top. And I want to show you I want to bring everybody's attention here. If you look closely enough, observe this structure carefully. On the left-hand side, in the west direction, we have a very heavy building structure, which is kind of blocking the Oval Office, supporting the Oval Office from the west. But since we have sunrise in the east, this is the east. We have east written here. The east has open grounds, which is very good indeed. And in fact, more so, northeast is also open here. It has ground. It has a lawn here. But although many may say that south is also open, but if you look closely, just right besides the Oval Office, we have a huge tree blocking the south view. Just right here in the south, we have a very huge tree. You can check it for yourself on Google Map. And more so, even southwest, which is said that it should be more obstructed or heavier. We have very high planted trees in this direction. So east is very well disposed here. Let's understand the directions even further more here. This will become even more clear. So this is the direction of the White House now. And how things are, how objects are placed in the White House. Let me show you that. So this is the inside structure of the White House. So although we have windows in the south, which is not something very good, but again, don't forget, we have a huge tree blocking the south. We also have exits on the eastern side, which are towards the lawn. We have an exit in the east southeast direction, which again has a lawn. And if beautifully to look at it here carefully, the northeastern axis doesn't has much here in this direction. What is most important here is that the chair of the president is in south direction. And how have I got these directions? I have taken all the data of, I have assessed all the length and breadth of the office and worked around all the furniture. And I mean, I have taken care of every detail that this is not, there are no errors in the calculation of the directions here. So the best part here I am saying is that the president's chair is in the south direction. Now, why is south being considered so important or so beneficial for the president? Now, let us understand this concept by a very simple concept of astrology again. So these are your cardinal directions, and even so, the horoscope is also in the same way, circular, with all the directions. We have the ascendant in the east, we have the descendant in the west, we have the 4th house in the north, and we have the 10th house in the south direction of the chart. I'm just taking these as the natural cardinal directions, so you understand the concept of Vastu easily. So we have the darker half, which is from west to east of the horoscope. And we have the brighter half from east to west of the horoscope. And we have sunrise always in the east. So nothing complicated in that. Very simple. But why south is more important? For the head or for the president. And why it is so good for the president to be having his chair and table in the south. Now look at the animation closely. As the sun precedes ahead, it becomes more influencing in the south. And then it gradually diminishes in the west, which makes the south direction of extreme importance for the head of the family or the head of an organization or the head of a nation. I'll show you the animation again. We have the sunrise in the east, understand the concept again. And during the day, sun rises overhead towards the south, making it more influencing. The sun is at maximum influence when it is in the south during daytime. And then eventually it sets in the west. And then we have the darker half of the hemisphere or the horoscope as well. So south becomes very, very important. So the best part of White House Oval Office is that the chair, first of all, the entire property, entire building structure is very well aligned to the natural cardinal directions with many elemental forces balanced with the nature, and the chair of the president is being in the south direction and south having obstructed by the tree. That is even further good, making it more heavier. Now let's go into the interiors of Oval Office. Now the yellow Oval Room as President Grover Cleveland's private office, 1886. Now this is an image from that time. He was an American lawyer and politician who served as the 22nd and 24th President of the United States from 1885 to 1889 and again from 1893 to 97. Although he had a very successful tenure of presidency, but there was also huge criticism constantly due to many policies approved by President Grover. There was a lot of setback to this president as well, continuous, frequently. What I want to bring your attention here is that although the chair and the table is very much in the same direction, south, but can anybody look at the northeastern part? Now we have more doors, we see a large mirror, we also have windows and openings here at present. But if you look closely where we have the clock right now, with most of the recent presidents, there is a huge structure with a heavy furniture structure placed in the northeastern direction. There are many chairs in the northeastern direction, and there is a cupboard with many, many heavy, it's just kind of filled up with books. Another thing is that look at the color of the curtains. How dark are they? Although it's a black and white image, the curtains are definitely darker in color. And even for so, since we are talking about since today's discussion is about floorings and ceilings, can anybody look at the color of the ceiling? It's definitely dark. It has a lot of stars which are dark in color. Now, this is something which I wanted to bring your attention to. The color of the ceiling is quite dark. It's not a plain ceiling as it has been recently for many presidents. Rather, it is darker in color. It has a lot of dark hint of stars, which makes it troublesome for any organization or a person working under or living under that room. Why so? Because there are deities attached to all these directions in Vastu. Every deity has a different function, and every deity has a different, analogy of how it will work. So depending upon that, we have to choose the color. So, but I'm not getting into the deities part because it will make it extensively elaborate. But let us understand how the choices of colors impacted presidents who have, kind of used the Oval House. So this is the color of the Oval Office during the presidency of Richard Nixon. And we know more or less, he had a successful presidency, but with, a lot of controversies again, but not the way previously. We still have a lot of hint of positive color in the directions. But look at the deep blue color of the flooring. More like Saturnine effect. Then we have President Ronald Reagan, a very well balanced color, I would say. But again, there is one trouble with the flooring here. The flooring seems to be, kind of with the lines on the carpet, with so many division of lines. If you look closely here, if you are able to look closely here, and even in this image, the carpet seems to be cut into pieces. It seems to be chopped. So this in itself is a little bit, gives a little hint of trouble. Although again, he had a successful presidency, I would say. And look at the clock. Look how northeastern part again has, there is there's not much of furniture in the northeastern part, only else than a clock, which is in fact a very good direction to put the clock in. It is again a good direction to have a clock, although north and east is the best direction, but still better than the previous image where we saw a lot of furniture being placed here. And remarkably, none of the presidents ever moved the table in the opposite direction towards the north. Now here we have President Barack Obama. He has almost a similar color as the recent one, which I presented. But see how beautifully the lines on the carpet have vanished. There are no separative lines on the carpet. The carpet is neat and clean, which makes it more effective. And we know that he had a very successful tenure of presidency, not just once, but twice. Look at the choice of colors. And look at the ceiling. Even this picture is giving you that the ceiling is more in white. And I will show one controversial president to conclude this. President John F. Kennedy. Now, although the choices of color for John F. Kennedy seem to be very subtle, they're more like, to my eye, it appears more like a shade of green. It could be having a little hue of blue, but it seems to be more like green, which is in fact not bad, because it was actually the color. There were no changes made to the Oval Office interiors once John F. Kennedy resumed the office after Dwight D. Eisenhower. I believe he resumed the office after this, and Dwight D. Eisenhower was using the same interior. So interiors were not changed. Then how come such a huge tragedy in life of John F. Kennedy. Is anybody aware what was the color of the office actually? Okay, to surprisingly, I will show you that just before assassination of Frank Kennedy, Kennedy himself asked for renovation of the office, and the office colors were entirely changed to this. See how the flooring color impacted him. A very Martian energy. Completely, the carpetry, the upholstery of the entire room was changed to red. And surprisingly, he was never able to resume this office. He was shot dead before resuming this office. Even setting foot in this office, I believe he must have, kind of visited it personally, but officially he was not able to resume this office. This was the color that was set only and only once in the history of Oval Office during the tenure of John Frank Kennedy, and he was the only president when he was, brutally assassinated. I mean, there is no previous data, although I know that there were a few other presidents who were assassinated. But this is a very practical example how, colors of the ceiling and flooring impact an individual person. So it is for every individual to be very specific about how you choose the color of your floorings. Many people choose a very dark color or a very bright color, but which is to be considered, which is it has to be, dealt with carefully what color you are choosing, because every direction has a different set of energy, and that according to that energy you may kind of have different color in a different direction. But this direction for Oval Office, with so much of power already there, and choosing this specific color for flooring was definitely a disaster. I mean, there is nothing, I don't even have to prove it. It is already there. It has already happened. So these are few concepts, how astronomy is related to astrology and how astrology defines different set of, energies for every structure on the planet, because every structure is already on the planet. We can't, escape that energy. And then how we are, binded with that energy and living, and how these energies are influencing every corner of your life in the physical world. So this was my basic presentation. This was a Vastu presentation about how you connect astronomy with astrology, and eventually how floorings and ceilings color impact you, and more so of why the White House is so much of an influential building in the entire world, why it is so influential office. So this was a presentation. I hope you kind of like this, and maybe much of it may have not made sense. So thank you for bearing with me. And if anybody has any more questions, feel free to